I'm sure something else will go wrong moving through it. All right, everyone make sure that your phones are off. As always, you have a maximum of 3 minutes, so I want you done before 3. So if you would like to establish someone else to give you a time wave, that is recommended. I will just cut you off when you've gone over your time, and I'll start on your mark. So when you start speaking, the timer starts.
Okay. We all set goals for ourselves. We want something bad enough that we'll do whatever it takes to get it. Each goal is unique. Some require little effort, while others require tireless hours of work. When we're chasing our goals, we all have moments of doubt. During these times of uncertainty, it's amazing how far a little persistence will take you. My persistence enables me to overcome my hesitations and drives me to achieve my goals, but it can also lead me to be stubborn. Like the time I insisted on meeting the tooth fairy. I had lost my tooth and I had the perfect plan. I was going to stay up all night until the tooth fairy came in so I could meet her. My mom kept telling me that it was a bad idea and that I should just go to bed, but I ignored her. I decided to fake sleep, and once I felt a movement under my pillow, I initially sprung up and saw my mom standing there with the $1 bill. Even though the cat was out of the bag with the tooth fairy, I still am like the squirrel from Ice Age chasing the damn acorn. As he runs across the ice and it starts to break, he still runs. He runs faster. His eyes get so wide they bulge from his head, and his grin stretches. He has the acorn in his grasp, but then he loses it. But he still chases his dream because that one touch was enough to reaffirm his goal. I was like the squirrel from Ice Age when I went to an extreme to get tickets for a concert. WMZQ Fest is the biggest country concert in BC. By the time I saved up enough money to buy a ticket, they were all sold out. But I had to go, so I had an idea. My friends told me I was crazy and that I was wasting my time, but I composed a one-page email to the radio host from WMZQ begging for tickets to the concert. I tweeted at him upwards of 100 times, asking him to check his email, and after a brutal 24 hours of waiting, he finally responded and gave me not 1, but 2 tickets to the concert. In conclusion, my persistence enables me to overcome my hesitations and helps me achieve my goals. But it is important for us to remember that with persistence, we must also keep in mind other people's advice.
I'll start on you.
Our back's against the wall. It's the 4th quarter with 30 seconds left in the game, and our team's down by 2. Situations like this is when we see what we're made of. Our competitiveness, or lack thereof, is put on display. My competitive nature causes me to overcome many situations that I face, but sometimes it makes me a little hostile or warlike. During my youth, I participated in the sport of wrestling. On a Saturday about 2 years ago, I was engaged in a heated wrestling match. My competitiveness caused me to lose control, and I blew the match way out of proportion by resorting to illegal measures to gain the upper hand. In the 3rd period, I hit the kid in the mouth with my forearm hard enough to knock out his front tooth. However, most of the time, though, my competitiveness caused me to try my hardest and never give up to win the matches. My competitive nature is like a honey badger. Honey badgers live in small packs and stick close to the ones in its pack. Honey badgers have been known to attack lions, which are 4 times their size. Randall from the YouTube video says, "Honey badgers don't give a shit, it just takes what it wants." These days, though, I'm faced with a whole new kind of fight that I believe every single one of us is facing. That is the fight against college. My competitive nature caused me to want to get the very best grades that I possibly can. Last semester, I was determined to make a B in calculus. I studied for 3 weeks for the final exam. And my competitiveness led me to overwork myself a little bit and hate school for a whole month. But ultimately, I earned that B in calculus. We all have the desire to compete within us. I choose to feed my desire. I'm a competitive person who won't back down from a challenge. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog, or should I say honey badger.
Yeah, quoting the YouTube video worked. That was a good move.
Growing up in a single-parent household as an only child consists of spending a lot of time alone. It also required me to grow up a little faster than most 6-year-olds. I like to think of myself as an independent young woman, but it wasn't always like that. Just like a newborn horse, I first needed my mom to help me up and push me forward. When I was 6, I remember my mom asked for a day off from work. She came up to me and said, "Okay, Annie, today I'm going to teach you how to cook." That day, I learned how to make eggs and rice. As we were sitting down to eat, she kept apologizing and saying that a little girl my age shouldn't have to be cooking. I honestly didn't pay attention to what she was saying. I was simply proud that I'd been able to make a meal all by myself. A couple of years later, I was sitting in my room after school, and I realized the pile of clothes had built up, and that it'd be a load off my mom's shoulders if I went and washed them. So I packed up the clothes, got a bunch of coins, and walked over to the laundromat. When I got there, I was a little intimidated by all the machines and all the buttons, but I'd seen my mom do it hundreds of times, so I figured I knew what to do. And I did. Again, I felt extremely proud to be able to do something by myself. Over the years, I've realized that to get what I want, I have to first learn how to get it, as well as work hard to get it. And currently, I work 2 jobs, and thanks to those 2 jobs, I was able to rent my first apartment this year, and I'm able to pay the rent every month on my own. I'm also responsible for my grocery shopping and everything else, and it's, it feels like a great accomplishment being able to do this on your own. In the end, my mom might have been right about being too young to do certain things on my own, but it is because of that I am able to now provide for myself, and it is because of that I am able to say that I am proud of the person I have become.
Everybody here knows that person who in your high school class who would get an assignment that's not due for 2 weeks and go home that day and do the whole thing, just so they knew they'd have enough time to make it perfect. Everyone hated that person because they made you feel like a slacker. Well, I am that person. Having a compulsive attitude is when you go 150% all the time when 100% would give you the exact same results. Although my compulsive attitude has helped me to achieve a lot of my goals, it also makes me really stressed out and anxious most of the time. I'm a lot like an indoor cat. When a cat's not sleeping, first thing it does is it cleans itself. And then once every hair is in place, it goes back and it cleans itself again. And then it goes and cleans another cat. And then it goes and finds something that looks like a tree and tears it to pieces just because. And then it goes and wanders on all the cabinets and knocks anything it can move off of just because. What I'm getting at here is a cat's not satisfied unless it's doing something, even if that something isn't productive. And that's a lot how my attitude is. One day that this was really apparent was before my AP Physics exam. I got up 2 hours before I even needed to, just to study. So I got up at 5 a.m., drank 3 cups of coffee, and then went to school after studying for 2 hours. And then on one hand, I had the notes I was trying to take for that class, and on the other hand, I had my AP Physics review book, and so I was doing problems and taking notes, really not retaining anything, but I felt like I was doing better because I was doing everything. And then after that day, there was a review session, but I had to work, so I just popped in for 5 minutes just to say I went because it made me feel better. Then after work, I was so tired that I couldn't even put in the last 3 hours of work that I wanted to for studying. And I blamed myself when I got a 3 on the exam instead of getting a 4. But in the end of the day, I probably would have gotten the exact same score had I not studied all that day and stressed before. So in conclusion, I do achieve my goals because of my compulsive attitude, but my heart rate is much faster than it should be 99% of the time.
As human beings, we can sometimes get provoked really easily. For instance, as human beings, we can all sometimes get provoked easily. For instance, you can be at cookout, having fun, eating and drinking, and then your friend says, hey, I dare you to throw this ball at this biker gang over there. You throw it just to prove the point that you can do it, and then you get the hell out of there. So this is me. I tend to be a hot-headed person, and I tend to do stupid things to prove a point, or whenever I get in an argument, I always tend to never compromise. My hot-headedness usually means I do get to have my way, although it does put me in really bad situations. For instance, one time when I was 12 years old, me and my friends were on a 50-foot wall. We were throwing rocks, we just wanted to see them fly. I was throwing my rocks, and I hear someone behind me say, hey, I dare you to jump. I'm like, I ain't jumping off this wall. He's like, yeah, you're a wiener. I'm like, I ain't no wiener. Everyone else joins in. I guess they want to see me die. They're like, you're a wiener. So I get over there on the ledge. I'm like, I ain't no wiener, and I jump. It was a glorious flight. Snapped my ankle. The entire right side of my body was bruised from where I fell. It was a really bad day, but the way I saw it, I won. Because on that day, I showed these assholes I'm not a wiener. So the way I like to look at it is that I'm like Diet Soda, Diet Coke. I'm pretty cool, I'm pretty refreshing, I'm a fizz guy. And then my friends are like fucking Mentos. Screw Mentos. You can throw into and it gets pretty fun, lots of fizz. You throw into and you shake the bottle, kick it, throw it into a house, the whole damn thing falls down. So that's me. An example of this was recently me and my friend were having an argument over who should have gone to pizza. It was the $5 deal on Tuesday for Papa John's, and I really wanted my pizza. I was really hungry. We fought and argued for 45 minutes, but I never gave in. He tried to tip me $2 to get the pizza, but I don't care. At the 1 hour mark, he finally gave in, and I got my pizza. I was rewarded. I feasted like a king that day. So, in conclusion, I guess I can say that while my hot-headedness usually puts me in really dumb situations, eventually it does end up paying off for me. All I can say is that I hope I never have to jump off another 50-foot wall.
So we've all had to write papers and do projects for school. And there we are, sitting in front of our computer, got a million ideas running through our mind, but really no idea where to start. Trust me, that's me every time. My brain sometimes feels like the spin cycle of a washing machine. I got all my ideas in there, all viable options, but when I reach in and try and grab one, it doesn't come out. Sometimes I need to wait until the very end, unload all the clothes, and it's that one bastard sock that found its way into that tiny little nook that's exactly the idea I needed all along. That idea, combined with my leadership skills that I've had throughout my life, is what I use to be the catalyst in a stagnant situation. Let's throw it back to high school real quick. It's one of those assignments that the teacher gives just to fill the state-mandated projects category. It's physics. Our assignment is to build a structure and wire it up with electricity. Well, my group mates have no idea what to do. I'm sitting there with the spin cycle going at maximum revolutions with no idea what to do, when all of a sudden, aha, that sock hit me. I'm sitting there, as most adolescent males do, thinking about the important things in life, like calculus and paying bills, when it hits me. We're going to build a 3-story tall football training facility for the Lingerie Football League. It's going to be great. Well, my group mates weren't so crazy about that idea, so I used my leadership and convinced them that yes, 1, it would be a good idea, and 2, we wouldn't get in trouble for it. Well, we worked hard and presented it to the class, and surprisingly, our short little Indian teacher loved it. And taking this, moving towards the future, as I see myself, hopefully as a successful man of business, this trait might not go as well as I'd hoped, because some bosses might argue that having the creativity and the leadership and trying to put that forth might be insubordination, or a great idea might not go as well as I'd hoped. Well, I intend to fix this problem by becoming the boss. And it amazes me that throughout thinking and writing about this entire process has been the process itself. and how that one lonely sock led me to be standing here telling you about this today. Thank you.
We all tend to be persistent in the things we truly care about. When we have a goal in mind, it's not typically the American way to try, fail, and just give up. We've been schooled to try and try again. My obstinacy throughout life has formed me into a stubborn but also a highly accomplished person. Well, you know, most typical public high schools have a football team and a marching band that includes a color guard, basically the flag girls of the dance routines. Fresh out of middle school, I decided the color guard would be my niche in high school. I barely had any dance experience except being a ballerina when I was 2, but it was something I really wanted to do. I auditioned in April 2010 and actually got a spot after being on the callback list for about a week. We then began seriously practicing a month later, and I was terrified. First, I had to learn how to dance. Second, I had to learn how to spin a flag. Every practice was a challenge. I cried a bunch that summer, and I kept asking questions. I even got tendinitis in my left shoulder from practicing and overexerting my muscle. It's easily comparable to Steve Urkel's crush on Laura Winslow in his sitcom Family Matters. Steve is beyond infatuated with Laura, and despite Laura's insistence that she doesn't share his feelings, he keeps going. Episode after episode, Steve goes into the Winslow household and to ask her out or compliment her like saying she's the most beautiful girl in the world or calling her nicknames like his pet. Laura turns him down every time, but Steve never relents. During an episode, they pretend to be married. Steve tells Laura, "I just can't help loving you. It's like wanting to touch a star. You know you'll never reach it, but you just gotta keep trying." During these circumstances, we can feel crestfallen and discouraged, but our persistence keeps us going. My obstinacy helps me because I don't like being disappointed. It forces me to be stubborn.
Think of all the decisions that we make in a given day. Some people make their decision, they spend hours coming up with it, and then even after that, they doubt what they've decided. And some people, when they make up their mind, that's it. I, having always been a very decided person, am one of the latter. I'm not saying that I make decisions rashly or quickly, but once I've made up my mind, it's absolute. I've always been this way. When I was 5 years old, I jumped out of a moving car. I was riding in the open trunk of our neighbor's car one summer coming home from the pool, and I decided I wanted to see if I could jump out of the car while it was moving and jump back in. So I did it. As soon as I jumped, my little 5-year-old legs came flying out from under me, and I dragged from about the distance of that side of the hallway to that side of the hallway, clenching onto the bumper for dear life until we got to the neighbor's house where I picked myself up with my bloody knees. So sometimes my decisions aren't that great. Maybe I could use some doubt, but because they do leave scars sometimes, but as soon as I've made up my mind, that's it. I'd say that my decision-making process is similar to that of a skydiver's. Once they get all of their equipment in order and ready to be executed, they board the plane knowing that there's only one way out. No matter how nervous I usually am, I always commit to the jump and trust that I'm going to land on solid ground. This mindset has driven me to do things that I normally wouldn't attempt. Last summer I decided to move to DC when I didn't know a soul living up there. So after I applied to tons of internships and housing and had both of those under my belt, next thing I knew I was moving in. It was June and I was about to spend the summer there. It ended up being the best summer of my life, and I honestly wouldn't have had that experience had I not been firm in my decision to do it. So I'm not sure if this mindset and outlook will help me or hurt me in my future careers or relationships, but I'll always know that I haven't wasted time doubting what I decided.
acclaimed Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy once said that the sole meaning of life is to serve humanity. We all have that one person that we care more for than we sometimes care for ourselves. Whether that takes shape in a relationship like Rachel and Phoebe and Friends, or Tom and Jerry, and we care for them more deeply than we do ourselves. Sometimes my eagerness to serve those around me is what creates an unattractive sense of pride within me. Being the youngest of 3 girls, growing up, being the best was all that I knew. I strived to be like my older sisters. That was especially true when Mom brought home the groceries. Sprinted to the car to be the first one to get as many as I could. There was no 2 or 3 trips. It was all in one. When Mom called us out, it was like world's strongest man. I got as many packed on my arms as possible. 3, 4, the eggs, the cheese, the milk, all of it. Then time froze, and all I could hear was my mom yelling at me to put some down, my sisters laughing, and my arms dying. Immediately I was on the ground, couldn't feel a thing, the eggs everywhere, the 2% milk all over my body, and the sacred animal crackers across the garage floor. I was counterproductive in all of my measures. Similar to Icarus, my pride got to the best of me. Greek mythological character Icarus was one that let his pride take him to death. When Icarus's father, a great craftsman, constructed wings out of he gave him one rule, not to fly too close to the sun. Icarus took that advice and they flew. They flew and we took off, and his dad was by his side, island behind him, and the world ahead. Wanted to go higher and push higher and soar. Too close to the sun, the wings melted, and he began to fall. His dad was calling for him, but he couldn't hear it anymore. He had died. Though I may become prideful in my approach like Icarus, my initial intent is always genuine. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I wake up to take my friends to an 8 a.m. class. I don't want recognition or to be acknowledged at all. I just want them to know that I am there for them and love them. One day I hope to be flying high with my father rather than plummeting to my prideful death alone.